After 28 years, he barked one word at me. Gone. Just like that. No performance review, no heads up, no conversation. Just that single syllable, launched across the loading dock like a rock through glass. And for a moment, everything stopped. The forklifts, the clatter of conveyor belts, the clipboard chatter, all of it froze around that word. My name's Ray Halter. I'm 57 years old. Or, at least I was when Chase said it. I was the senior operations manager at Templeton Supply and Logistics. A job title that never came with a fancy office or gold watch, but earned me a hell of a lot of respect. I was the guy they called when 3 pallets of medical gear didn't arrive, or when new hires couldn't figure out the barcode system. I trained half the men on that floor. Hell, I trained the guy who trained the rest. Now I was just gone. Chase Templeton owner's son-in-law, recent Wharton grad, brand new VP of Strategic Initiatives, stood on the elevated dock like some kind of messiah in designer jeans, holding an iPad like a sword. He didn't bother to meet my eyes, just stared down at me like I was a loose bolt in his freshly oiled machine. "You're out, Ray," he said, louder this time, so everyone could hear it. "We appreciate your years of whatever, but we need to make room for leaner, faster systems, agile teams, adaptive leadership. You know how it is." I didn't reply. Not right away. The men watched. Some glanced down at their boots. A few looked at me like they didn't know whether to say something or stay silent and survive. I didn't blame them. I'd taught them to pick their battles. I just never thought I'd be the one they had to pick around. "Antique," Chase muttered under his breath, but loud enough for it to carry. He smirked like he'd landed a clever jab, one he'd probably been rehearsing in front of a mirror. The kid couldn't lift a 40-pound box without a personal trainer, but here he was, flexing power like he'd earned it. I wanted to say something. God, I wanted to say something. But in war, you don't counterpunch during recon. You watch. You remember. So I just nodded, not to him, to the building, to the rows of steel racks and loading bays I'd helped design when the company was barely keeping the lights on. I thought about the late nights training new hires, the times I stayed past midnight recalibrating the inventory software no one else could troubleshoot. I thought about Barry Templeton, the real owner who'd shaken my hand 20 years ago and said, "This place runs on people like you." I didn't see Barry that morning. Just Chase, and a silence so loud it pressed against my ribs like a loaded gun. He stepped aside like a traffic cop and gestured toward the exit. "Security will walk you out. We'll box up your things." Box up my life. I walked past him without a word. My boots echoed on the polished concrete as I moved through the rows of workers I once commanded. I caught sight of Miguel, quiet, dependable, top of his class in training. His jaw clenched. His hands tightened around a pallet jack, but he didn't speak. Neither did I. I passed the break room, didn't stop. But I saw it. My photo, framed and hung dead center on the far wall. Employee of the Year, 2016. The others were gone, replaced with whiteboards and team-building posters, but mine stayed. Still hanging. Still there. A relic. When I reached the parking lot, the sun hit me square in the face. Not too hot. Not too cold. One of those crisp mornings that makes you think you've still got time to fix things. Maybe I did, maybe not. But one thing was certain. Chase Templeton thought I was finished, and he had no idea what I was about to do next. When I got home, I didn't go inside right away. Just sat in my truck in the driveway. Engine off. Keys dangling in the ignition. My house looked the same as it had that morning. Lawn trimmed, porch light still on even though the sun was out. But I didn't feel like the man who'd left it just a few hours earlier. I felt like someone who'd been erased. I'd given 28 years to Templeton Supply, started when I was 29, back when the office was a converted storage trailer, and the floor ran on handwritten manifests and a whole lot of duct tape. My first winter. The heat went out for 3 days. I showed up every morning anyway, breath visible in the cold air as I walked the floor. We were small then, 3 trucks a week, One regional contract, barely enough payroll to keep the lights on. I stuck with it. Skipped family vacations. Slept in the break room more than once. I trained every lead tech we ever had. Built the operations manual from scratch. When Barry Templeton needed someone to supervise the transition to digital, he didn't call the consultants, he called me. Said, "If this place has bones, Ray, they're yours." That meant something. Now Chase wore my bones like a costume. He came in 6 months ago, fresh off a beach wedding to Barry's daughter, Madison. MBA from somewhere that printed degrees faster than it taught character. First week on the job, he announced we were getting agile. Started using words like disruption and culture mapping. I remember the first time he wore sneakers to a quarterly ops meeting. Not boots, not steel toes, white leather sneakers. Like he was headed to brunch. Called them leadership casual. Half the guys thought he was lost, but he wasn't stupid. He was calculated, knew just enough jargon to confuse people, just enough charm to earn the old man's trust. He didn't even pretend to learn the floor, never pulled a shift, never rode along with the delivery team, never got his hands dirty, but he rebranded everything: new logo, new email signatures, even a motivational wall quote in the break room: "Fast is better than perfect." I stared at that sign every lunch, break, wondering what would happen when fast got someone hurt. 2 days after I got fired, I got a text from Marty, shipping coordinator. Worked under me for 11 years. "You got replaced by Kyle Brecker." Kyle. Of course. Chase's beer pong buddy from his undergrad days. The guy who once called our label scanner that gun thingy. No logistics experience, no certifications, no clue how to route a split shipment. But he was young and loyal, and more importantly, easy to blame. Marty sent another text. "We missed Q3 quotas. Badly. They're blaming your old system for the shortfall." I didn't respond right away, just stared at the screen, thumb hovering. I knew what this was. Chase had been laying the groundwork for weeks, talking about legacy processes, bottlenecks, inefficiencies. At the last town hall, he said, "We're modernizing from the inside out." Everyone clapped. I didn't. I knew what that meant. He'd rigged the projections, inflated the targets just enough to make them impossible to hit. And when they weren't met, he pointed at the old framework. My framework. Marty called later that night. Said morale was shot. Half the new hires had quit. The veteran guys were being sidelined in favor of Chase's new hires, most of them clueless, all of them expendable. "He keeps bringing up your name," Marty said. "Every meeting. Says you refuse to innovate. Says we're cleaning up your mess." I didn't yell, didn't argue. Just asked him to send me anything he could: memos, emails, reports, anything that didn't look right. He said he would. Said he'd been keeping a folder. I sat in the dark after the call. No TV, no music. Just me and the quiet. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That would come later. Right now, I was just taking notes. Every move, every mistake, every lie. Because Chase thought this was over. He thought firing me meant I was gone, but I hadn't even started. I met Pete Delgado in his garage 3 days after Marty's call. He was one of my first hires back when Templeton was running 6 dock bays and 3 forklifts. All secondhand. He used to call me coach like half the guys did, and when I shook his hand that morning, it still had the same grip, strong, no nonsense. His garage smelled like WD-40 and burnt coffee. The kind of place where real talk lives. He handed me a cold soda, nodded toward a lawn chair next to a workbench covered in tools. No small talk, just sat down across from me, cracked his can open, and said, "The place is falling apart, Ray." I didn't interrupt, just let him go. "They cut safety training, said it was inefficient," he continued. "Got temps doing 4-man jobs with no walkthroughs. Kid slipped last week unloading drywall, compression fracture in his wrist. They told him to clock out and go to urgent care on his own dime. No report filed." I clenched the can in my hand a little tighter. "That's not the worst of it," Pete added. "Chase pushed the receiving team to hit numbers from a forecast we never saw. Then he backdated 2 weeks of reports when we missed them." He paused and looked at me, searching for a reaction. I kept my face steady. "I knew you'd want to know," he said. I nodded once. Send me whatever you have. He pulled out a flash drive and set it on the table between us. It's all there. Time cards, reports, notes from a few of the guys. I pulled it before IT could lock us down. You still on the floor? Moved me to nights. Said they were giving fresh energy to the day crew. He spat that last part, like it tasted bad. Translation. Chase's frat brothers needed day shifts to make happy hour. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling like the old ductwork might give me an answer. If he thinks I'm antique, I said, he's never read a manual on pressure systems. You apply it slow, until the whole tank bursts. Pete chuckled once. It was bitter. Over the next week, I started hearing from more of them. Brandon, Mia, Jerome, all people I'd trained. They reached out quietly, some through burner emails, some through late-night calls. Each one brought something. Screenshots of falsified incident logs, photos of expired safety gear still in use. One even sent a memo Chase had circulated instructing leads to flag all legacy processes as high-risk liabilities. He didn't say my name in that memo, but he didn't have to. The final piece came from Jerome. He'd been moved into scheduling when Chase restructured the teams, found a file labeled Q4 Compliance Summary. It was supposed to be signed by me, digital signature and all, but the timestamp was dated 2 weeks after I was fired. It was a forgery. Sloppy, too. The system didn't even hide the edit history. He'd copied my e-signature from an old training document and slapped it onto a federal compliance form. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was shocked. I wasn't. I'd seen this coming since the day Chase walked into the company like he'd invented forklifts. But seeing your name used like that, your trust bent into a weapon, still hits you in the gut. I printed the document and filed it in a red folder with the rest. I wasn't collecting receipts anymore. I was building a case. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the fan humming above me and dialed an old number, Charlie Bennett. Retired now, but he used to run regional oversight for the Department of Labor. We'd played softball together back in the day. He answered on the second ring. Ray? Been a long time. Yeah, I said. Too long. What's going on? I've got something for you. It's not pretty. Forged compliance reports, safety violations, time card fraud. Silence. Then, you sure? I'm sure. All right, he said. Let's talk. I hung up, poured a glass of water, and stared out the window. Chase thought he'd taken my power when he took my job. He didn't know I was just getting started. The ballroom at the Western Regional Safety Conference smelled like hotel coffee and burnt carpet. Rows of gray chairs, filled with operations managers, compliance officers, and the occasional plant supervisor, all of us trying to pretend we hadn't heard the same recycled keynote about culture alignment for the 5th year running. I wasn't there for the speakers. I was there for the networking and one name on the guest list. During the afternoon breakout session, I spotted him by the coffee station, Alan Mayers, former director of ops at Palmetto Freight, older guy, bow tie, always chewed the ends of pens. He'd given Chase his first internship out of undergrad. I remembered the name from Chase's LinkedIn before he scrubbed it clean and replaced it with entrepreneurial leadership journey. Alan, I said, extending a hand. He squinted, then broke into a grin. Ray Halter? Damn, haven't seen you in what, 10 years? Close enough, I said. Mind if I pick your brain a minute? We stepped out into the hallway, away from the noise of the panel discussion. I've got a situation, I started. You ever hear of a kid named Chase Templeton? Alan chuckled. Oh yeah, Hurricane Chase. Came through Palmetto like a wrecking ball. Smart, but always trying to shortcut the grind. Got let go before his internship was even over. Tried to pass off a vendor's analytics report as his own work. Sloppy cut and paste job. I smiled. Sounds familiar. Alan raised an eyebrow. He land somewhere big? VP now. Married the boss's daughter. Running a warehouse operation like it's a startup pitch deck. Alan rolled his eyes. I should have known. That kid always did know how to talk his way into rooms he didn't belong in. I reached into my bag and pulled out a printout from Chase's internal profile. Specifically, the 6 Sigma Black Belt certification. He'd waved around like a holy scroll. Know this institute? I asked. Alan looked at it for 3 seconds. Then snorted. That school doesn't issue black belts. They barely hand out certificates. This is a fake. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He leaned in. If he's presenting that to clients or investors, he's toast. By the time I got back to my truck, my phone had lit up with new messages. One from Mia report of a shelving collapse on Bay 3. 2 guys nearly crushed. One from Brandon missed contract delivery led to a $40,000 penalty clause. Another from Pete. Half the night shift walked. Said they're tired of babysitting Kyle. I opened the messages, saved the photos, and dropped them into my red folder. Inside that folder was everything now. The forged compliance doc with my name on it. A month's worth of doctored time cards. A running list of OSHA violations swept under the rug. And now, a falsified certification, and a resume built on lies. That night, I drove to a small law office off East Glendale. The kind of place that didn't advertise but always had a parking lot full of pickup trucks. Office of Max Trujillo, former Navy JAG. Now handling wrongful terminations and labor violations for guys like me. Guys who didn't have the luxury of suing for sport. He flipped through the red folder slowly, methodically, highlighting sections and nodding every few minutes. This is strong, he said. Very strong. I don't just want reinstatement, I told him. I want accountability. You'll get it, Max said. The forged signature alone puts them in hot water. Add in the falsified reports, the injuries, the negligence, you've got enough leverage to bring the whole damn roof down. I left his office with a signed retainer and a plan. Back at home, I was pouring a drink when my phone buzzed again. Unknown. Number. Just one message. Let's talk. Privately. B. Templeton. For a moment I just stared at it. Barry hadn't spoken to me since the day I was fired. Not a word. Now he wanted a private conversation. I didn't reply. Not yet. Pressure systems don't explode on impulse. They hum. They shake. They whisper warnings through steel. And this one? This one was ticking. The boardroom was too clean. Glass walls. Polished mahogany table. Bottled water lined up like trophies. On the far end, a flat screen displayed a perfectly formatted slide. Q4. Strong finish. Stronger future. At the head of the table stood Chase Templeton. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. Hair slicked back like he was on a magazine cover. He clicked the remote, pacing slowly. Voice oozing confidence. Despite the slight turbulence in early Q3, we've recalibrated operations and are now projected to exceed fulfillment benchmarks by 8.7% in Q4. The streamlining process is working. The shift to performance-based staffing has eliminated inefficiencies and the door opened. All eyes turned. I stepped inside, wearing a black jacket, jeans, and a look that didn't ask permission. Behind me came Max Trujillo, my lawyer, and a Department of Labor auditor named Kent Whitaker. His badge was visible. His silence louder than any introduction. Under my arm was the red folder. Chase froze mid-step, remote still in hand. What the hell is this? Barry Templeton rose from his chair slowly. Ray, what's going on here? I walked to the table without looking at Chase, set the red folder down, opened it, and began laying out documents like a dealer laying down a winning hand. This, I said calmly, is your Q4. First came the forged compliance document, signed with my name 2 weeks after I was fired. The audit trail was printed in bold. Date, time, IP address, all pointing straight to Chase. Next, falsified time cards, shifts that never happened, names of employees who'd quit but were still being billed on the books. Then, internal HR complaints never filed officially, but collected by my sources. One detailed a shelving collapse that put a man in the ER, Another cited training lapses that violated basic OSHA standards. Every one of them, time-stamped. Every one, ignored. Chase laughed, but it cracked halfway through. This is absurd. None of that's admissible. He doesn't even work here. The auditor stepped forward. We'll see what's admissible. But I've already opened a federal investigation into labor violations, forged compliance documents, and misappropriation of safety protocols. We've received corroborating reports from over 9 employees. That's more than enough to proceed. Chase's color drained, his mouth opened, then closed again. Max handed Barry a printed summary. Also worth noting, your VP's resume lists a 6 Sigma Black Belt certification from a non-accredited institution. We've verified with the program's director that no such certification exists. He fabricated the credential. That's fraud. The room was dead quiet. Kyle, seated near the back, tried to slide lower in his chair, as if gravity might pull him away from this mess. One of the investors leaned forward. Did you know about this, Barry? Barry shook his head slowly. No. His voice was quiet, flat. Then he turned to Chase. Effective immediately. Chase's head snapped up. What? You're done. No. You don't understand, these people are lying. This is political. Security's waiting in the lobby. I took one step closer and looked Chase in the eye. You fired me in public, I said. I ended you in private. I smiled, small and cold. I liked my version better. The board stared at me like they didn't know what to do next. Barry finally cleared his throat. We'd like you to return. Oversee transition. Clean up this mess. Full authority. I nodded slowly, then shook my head. I didn't come back to work. I came back to finish the job. I closed the folder, tucked it under my arm, and walked out. In the hallway, Chase was waiting, flanked by 2 security guards, red in the face, jaw clenched. As I passed him, I reached into my pocket, pulled out something small, and dropped it into the trash can beside the elevator. My old nameplate. Let them know I'd been here. Let them know I didn't need it anymore.